At 19, she lived in a small village where the houses were made of mud and the streets were dusty. Every day she woke up before the sun rose to help her family with chores. Her father worked in the fields and her mother cooked and cleaned for the family. She had younger siblings who depended on her to look after them when her parents were busy. Life was hard and the days were long, but she had learned to be strong and patient. She often dreamed of a better life, even though she did not know what that meant. She wished for happiness and freedom in ways she could not yet name. Her thoughts often wandered to the possibility of living somewhere far from the village where she could make her own choices and not be told what to do. She wanted to be able to go to the market without someone watching her and to laugh freely without fear of being scolded. Her family was poor, and money was always a worry. They could not pay for many things, and the simplest needs were sometimes hard to meet. When the news came that she was to be married, the weight of it felt like a stone on her chest. She had heard about girls being married young. She had listened to the whispers in the village about difficult lives that awaited them. She did not know her future husband, and she wondered if he would be kind or harsh. Her parents explained that it was for the family and that she must be strong. She did not argue because she knew it would not change anything. Instead, she tried to prepare herself for the unknown. She began to think about what it would be like to live in another house far away and what challenges she would face. The days passed slowly as she tried to find moments of peace. She spent hours helping her mother in the kitchen and learning to cook meals that would please a new household. She helped her siblings with their studies and listened to their laughter and questions, feeling a bittersweet sense of joy. The village was small, and everyone knew each other. She would sometimes walk along the narrow paths and watch the sun set behind the hills, thinking about a life that seemed so far away. She imagined streets full of people she had never met and places she could explore. These thoughts gave her courage, but also made her heart heavy because she knew the freedom she imagined might never come. Her father spoke little about the marriage, but his eyes were full of worry. He worked long hours in the fields and brought home whatever he could earn to feed the family. Sometimes he would sit beside her and quietly touch her shoulder, a silent way of showing that he cared. Her mother spoke gently and told her that life would be different soon, but she would have to be brave. The girl nodded but could not hide her fear. She thought about leaving her home, the streets she had run along as a child, and the small garden where she had picked flowers. Everything she loved seemed so close yet so far away. The fear of the unknown made her nights restless and her heart heavy. She remembered sitting by the window one evening, looking at the stars that shone brightly above the village. The cool breeze brushed against her face, and she felt a strange mix of hope and sadness. She wondered about the house she would move into, the people she would meet, and whether she would find kindness there. She thought about the stories she had heard from older girls in the village, about harsh treatment and strict rules. She feared the life that had been chosen for her might be very different from the one she had dreamed about. Yet she also hoped that perhaps there could be moments of joy even in a life she did not choose herself. She held on to that thought as she tried to sleep that night. The wedding day was approaching, and the preparations filled the village with quiet activity. Clothes were made, and gifts were gathered. She watched her family move about with purpose, everyone busy with their part of the preparations. She helped where she could, but felt like a small piece in a large machine. She did not feel anger, but a quiet resignation, accepting that her life was about to change. She noticed how her mother worked tirelessly, and how her father spoke softly to calm the youngest siblings. The girl tried to focus on their care and not on her own fear, but it was not easy. Every time she thought of leaving her home, she felt a pang of loss and anxiety. Her friends in the village came to see her in the days before the wedding. They laughed and shared stories, but she could not join fully in their joy. She smiled when they joked and tried to feel happy for them, but her mind often drifted to the house she would move to, the new people she would meet, and the responsibilities that awaited her. She wondered if she would be able to speak up for herself, or if she would be expected to follow every instruction without question. She had learned to be quiet and obedient, but she hoped that she could also be seen and heard in her new life. She clung to the hope that she would find at least one person who would understand her and treat her kindly. On the morning before her departure, she helped her mother with the last preparations. They cooked meals to take along and packed small items that would remind her of home. Her mother hugged her tightly and whispered words of encouragement. Her father stood silently, his hand resting briefly on her shoulder, a gesture that said more than words could. She felt tears in her eyes but did not cry. She wanted to be strong and show that she could face what was coming. The village seemed unusually quiet that morning, as if it too was aware of the change that was about to happen. She walked through the streets she had known all her life, taking in the sights, sounds, and smells, trying to remember everything. She wanted to carry a piece of her home with her wherever she went. The journey to her new home was long and tiring. She sat quietly, looking out the window at passing fields and villages. Every mile made her heart heavier, but also filled her with anticipation. She wondered what kind of people she would meet, how she would be treated, and if she would ever feel truly at ease in this new place. She thought about her family and how they would be managing without her. She worried for them even as she worried for herself. The road seemed endless, but she tried to focus on small comforts like the gentle sway of the cart and the fresh air. When she finally arrived, the new house seemed large and imposing. The walls were tall, and the rooms seemed endless compared to her small home. She met some members of the household who were polite but distant. Everything felt strange and unfamiliar. She moved cautiously through the rooms, trying to find her place. She felt out of balance and unsure of what to do. The house was quiet in a way that made her anxious, and she longed for the familiar sounds of her village. Yet she also noticed small things like a warm fire and clean floors that reminded her that life could be different here. She took a deep breath and reminded herself that she must be strong. She had faced fear before and she could do it again. That night, she lay in her new room, the unfamiliar bed and strange smells surrounding her. She thought of her family, the life she had left behind, and the unknown life ahead. She felt a mixture of fear, sadness, and a small spark of hope. She told herself that she could endure this, and that she could find small moments of happiness even here. She closed her eyes and tried to rest, knowing that the days ahead would be challenging, but also hoping that kindness might be found where she least expected it. She imagined herself walking through the house with confidence, learning the routines and discovering the people who might become her friends. She fell asleep with these thoughts, holding on to a quiet determination to survive, and to find some joy in the life that had been chosen for her. The morning after she arrived at the new house, she woke up early, the sunlight coming through the window making her blink. She felt strange and unsure as she stepped out of bed. Everything was different from her home, from the floor beneath her feet to the walls around her. The sounds were unfamiliar, and the air smelled different. She could hear faint voices in the distance as the household began to stir. She dressed quickly, trying to gather her courage for the day ahead. She had no clear idea what she would face, only that she must learn to adapt to this new life. Her mind went back to her family and the small moments of comfort she had left behind. She missed the laughter of her siblings and the warm voice of her mother. Her heart ached, but she pushed the sadness aside, telling herself she could survive this change. The first task of the day was to meet her husband formally. She walked into the main room where he was waiting. He looked at her calmly, his eyes steady and observing. She felt nervous and unsure how to respond. He spoke in a quiet voice, asking about her journey and if she was tired. She nodded and whispered that she was fine. His calm demeanor surprised her, and a small flicker of hope appeared. She realized that perhaps he was not as harsh as she had feared. She studied his face and noticed the kindness in his eyes, though he said little else. The household watched quietly, waiting for her reaction and response. She felt the weight of their attention and tried to stay composed. The day moved slowly with small tasks assigned to her. She helped in the kitchen, chopping vegetables and learning new ways of cooking that were unfamiliar. The smells were different and the methods complicated. She stumbled a few times, but her patience and determination kept her going. Occasionally, someone would offer a word of advice, gentle and non-judgmental. She noticed that some members of the household were curious about her and spoke softly to make her feel comfortable. She felt a tiny sense of belonging in the midst of uncertainty. The work was tiring, but she focused on learning each step and doing it correctly. With each small success, her confidence grew a little. Meals were prepared and served under the watchful eyes of the family. She observed their routines and tried to follow them carefully. She learned when to speak and when to remain quiet, what to do with dishes, and how to serve respectfully. She felt the burden of responsibility, but also a sense of pride in completing tasks well. It was not the life she had imagined, but she realized that she could manage small victories each day. The day passed with moments of quiet reflection, where she thought about her past life and what she had left behind. She missed her home, but she also noticed the differences that made this place seem orderly and secure. The contrast was stark. She felt a mixture of homesickness and curiosity. In the evening, she was allowed a short walk around the grounds. She felt the cool air against her face and breathed deeply. The gardens were large and full of plants she had never seen. She walked slowly, touching the leaves and flowers, letting the beauty of the surroundings calm her. She imagined learning more about this place, discovering its secrets, and finding small joys in daily life. She thought about how she could make this house feel like home in her own way. Her thoughts drifted to her family again, and she promised herself that she would stay strong for them, even from afar. The solitude of the walk allowed her to feel connected to herself and to the possibilities of the future. Back inside, she returned to her duties and noticed the little ways the household members tried to include her. A gentle smile from one, a quiet question from another, small gestures that made her feel less alone. She realized that even in a place she had feared, kindness could exist. She began to look for these moments, understanding that they could help her build trust and make life more bearable. She spoke softly when necessary and listened carefully to instructions, showing respect and willingness to learn. The day had been tiring, but she ended it with a feeling of accomplishment. She realized that adaptation was the first step toward finding peace in this new life. Night fell, and she returned to her room, her thoughts wandering. She thought about the man she had met, the calm and measured way he treated her, the small gestures of understanding she had witnessed. Her fear was still there, but it had softened into cautious hope. She thought about how she would navigate each day, learning slowly and taking small steps toward independence within the household. She made plans in her mind for the coming days, thinking of how she could master chores, learn names, and find allies who could guide her. She felt a growing sense of self-reliance, understanding that survival required patience and attentiveness. Sleep came slowly as she lay in bed, listening to the quiet sounds of the house. She thought of her parents, the lessons they had taught her, and the resilience they had instilled. She felt a sense of gratitude for her upbringing, realizing that it had prepared her in ways she had not yet understood. She closed her eyes with a determination to face the days ahead with courage, accepting that life was difficult but also full of small opportunities for hope. She promised herself to stay strong, to notice kindness, and to nurture the spark of hope that had begun to grow in her heart. The night passed quietly, and she dreamed of small victories and gentle moments of understanding in the life that awaited her. The next morning brought new challenges and new opportunities. She woke early and approached each task with renewed focus. She noticed the routines more clearly, learned the names of those around her, and began to understand the rhythm of the household. She realized that adaptation was a gradual process, one that required patience, observation, and careful action. She took each day as it came, finding small moments of success and learning from mistakes without fear. Her confidence grew slowly, and she began to feel a sense of belonging in her new environment. She understood that the life she had entered was not what she had imagined, but it was survivable, and perhaps even bearable. As days turned into weeks, she found herself thinking less about the fear and more about the practicalities of life. She learned the timing of meals, the way to prepare dishes correctly, and how to interact politely with the household members. She noticed small gestures of friendship and began to respond in kind. She realized that trust could be built slowly and that patience was a strength. The challenges were many, but she found that she could endure them with determination and grace. She began to understand the value of observation, learning from the people around her and adapting to the expectations of her new life. Her fear of the unknown was replaced gradually with a cautious sense of confidence and curiosity about what might come next. Evenings became a time of reflection and quiet learning. She thought about the moments of kindness she had witnessed, as the lessons she had learned, and the growing sense of self-reliance. She realized that strength did not mean being fearless, but but rather facing fear and moving forward anyway. She found comfort in the small victories, the successful completion of tasks, and the subtle ways she was becoming part of the household. The life she had feared was not easy, but it was not unbearable either. She began to see that even in a hard life, moments of understanding, compassion, and hope could exist, and that she could find ways to hold on to them. The wedding day arrived with a quiet tension that seemed to hang in the air. She woke early, her heart beating fast, unsure of what the day would bring. She dressed carefully in the clothes provided, feeling the fabric on her skin and noticing every detail. She thought about the journey ahead and the moments that would follow. The house was alive with activity, servants and family members moving quietly but with purpose. She could hear soft voices giving instructions and the gentle clatter of preparation. She tried to steady her breathing and focus on the tasks at hand, knowing that today would mark the beginning of a new chapter in her life as the morning light filled the room. She looked at her reflection. Her face was calm, though inside her emotions were swirling. She remembered the advice of her parents to be strong and patient. She wanted to show courage, but she could not hide the nervous anticipation. She thought of the strangers she would meet and the unknown experiences that awaited her. She reminded herself that she had already survived difficult times and could handle what was coming. She took a deep breath and stepped forward into the main room where the wedding ceremony would take place. The room was decorated simply, yet with care, and the atmosphere felt solemn but respectful. She could see her husband waiting, his posture steady and calm. His eyes met hers, and she felt a strange mixture of fear and relief. The ceremony began with quiet words and traditional rituals. She followed the instructions carefully, watching the movements and gestures of those around her. Her hands were slightly trembling, but she tried to focus on the rhythm and the meaning behind each step. She listened to the soft words spoken by the officiant and responded when required. Each moment seemed to stretch on, and she felt both nervous and alert. She observed the faces of the family and household members, noting their expressions and the respect they showed for the occasion. She felt the weight of tradition and expectation, yet also a sense of belonging in the ritual itself. Her husband remained calm throughout, offering occasional glances and gentle nods. She noticed his patience and measured presence, which made her feel less anxious. She realized that he was attentive to her reactions, and that gave her a quiet comfort she had not expected. She wondered if life with him could be different from the fearful stories she had heard. The ceremony continued, with small gestures of unity and respect. She participated with care, mindful of every movement and word. The moments of uncertainty were balanced by the occasional reassuring look from her husband. She began to feel that, perhaps, she could navigate this life with caution and dignity. The exchange of simple gifts and tokens followed. She felt nervous, unsure of what was expected, but she followed instructions carefully. Her hands shook slightly as she held the objects, and her husband noticed without comment. He guided her gently, allowing her to proceed at her own pace. The presence of his calm attention was grounding, and she began to feel a sense of security. The ceremony was long, yet her focus never wavered. She noticed small details, the colors, the sounds, and the expressions of those around her. She tried to memorize each aspect, understanding that this day would remain with her forever. After the formal rituals, she was led to a quieter room to rest and prepare for the evening. She took a moment alone, sitting quietly and reflecting on the day. She thought about the fears she had carried and how they had shifted slightly with each interaction. She realized that fear could be softened by patience and observation. She began to see her husband not as a figure of dread, but as a person who could show understanding. She felt a mixture of relief and anticipation, knowing that the next moments would be crucial in shaping her feelings about this new life. She prepared herself mentally, reminding herself to stay calm and attentive. The evening arrived, and the household moved with a quiet sense of anticipation. She followed the steps she had been shown, moving carefully and with attention. She noticed small gestures from those around her, subtle signs of respect and support. Her husband remained calm and steady, his presence a quiet reassurance. She felt her tension ease slightly, replaced by a cautious sense of hope. She thought about how she could approach this new life, learning slowly and finding small moments of understanding. The night held uncertainty, yet she felt more prepared than she had expected. During the evening, she observed her surroundings carefully. She noted the warmth of the room, the arrangement of furniture, and the careful preparation that had been done. She appreciated the effort and the attention to detail, which made her feel that her presence was valued. She began to see that even in a life she had not chosen, moments of care and consideration could exist. She took comfort in these observations. Understanding that her experience could be shaped by small choices and careful actions, she resolved to notice these moments and respond with patience and respect as the night deepened. She and her husband spoke quietly, exchanging gentle words and learning about each other in small ways. He asked about her journey and her comfort, and she responded honestly yet respectfully. She noticed that he listened carefully, without judgment, and this gave her a feeling of being seen and understood. The fear she had carried for so long began to soften, replaced by a quiet curiosity and a willingness to trust. She realized that the stories she had heard about harsh treatment did not fully describe the reality she was experiencing. The rest of the evening passed slowly. With moments of quiet conversation and shared understanding, she began to feel that her fears had been based on assumptions and stories rather than the present reality. She noticed the gentle care in her husband's actions and the respectful way he treated her. She felt a sense of relief, realizing that her life could include moments of kindness even within the responsibilities and challenges she faced. She reflected on her journey so far and felt a quiet pride in her resilience and patience. By the end of the night, she felt a cautious sense of accomplishment. She had faced the ceremony and the evening with composure, and she had discovered unexpected understanding in her new husband. She realized that fear could be tempered by observation, patience, and small gestures of care. She began to feel a sense of hope, understanding that the life she had entered could hold moments of connection and respect. She closed her eyes, reflecting on the lessons of the day and the quiet courage she had shown. She felt a renewed determination to navigate each day with care, patience, and attention to the small signs of kindness that could guide her through her new life. The night ended with a quiet sense of possibility. She understood that the challenges ahead were many, but she also recognized the presence of patience and understanding in her surroundings. She felt a growing sense of trust and cautious optimism. The wedding day, which had begun with fear and uncertainty, had revealed unexpected moments of support and gentleness. She realized that life was unpredictable and could hold surprises, and she resolved to approach each new day with resilience, observation, and a quiet hope for what might come next. The night continued slowly, filled with quiet moments and careful observation. She sat beside her husband, feeling the uncertainty of the new life pressing on her. Yet noticing the calm presence beside her, she thought about the day that had passed, the ceremony and the gentle interactions that had given her glimpses of kindness. She realized that fear, while natural, could be softened by observation and understanding. She looked at the man beside her and noticed the care in his movements and the respect in his quiet words. Her heart began to ease, realizing that the fear she had carried for so long might not define the life ahead. As the evening deepened, she and her husband spoke softly, sharing thoughts and small stories from their pasts. He asked questions carefully, without pressing too much, allowing her space to answer honestly. She found herself speaking cautiously, yet feeling a sense of relief at being heard. Each word and gesture was measured with care, and she noticed the thoughtfulness in his actions. He did not rush or demand, and this gentleness allowed her to breathe a little easier. She realized that her expectations, shaped by fear and the stories she had heard, were not the full reality. The man beside her was patient. She began to see the possibility of trust and mutual respect. The night moved on. She felt the weight of the day slowly lift. The household was quiet, and the stillness allowed her to reflect. She thought about the kindness she had witnessed in small gestures, the careful attention her husband had shown, and the patient guidance from others around her. She understood that life could hold moments of tenderness, even in circumstances she had feared. Her heart, still cautious, began to open to the possibility that she could feel safe and respected in this new home. She observed the room, noting the quiet comfort in its arrangement, the warmth of the fire, and the careful preparation that had been done to welcome her. She felt a small sense of gratitude for the attention and care. Realizing that these moments could become anchors in her daily life, she spoke about her journey and her thoughts, sharing small pieces of herself with her husband. He listened without interruption, nodding or responding with quiet acknowledgement. She noticed that his attention was steady and focused, a sharp contrast to the fear she had carried for so long. She began to understand that patience and observation could be powerful tools in navigating life. The night became a space for learning and understanding, a time for cautious exploration of trust. She felt a growing sense of connection, even in small ways, and realized that the fear she had held was slowly being replaced by curiosity and cautious optimism. Her mind wandered to her family and the life she had left behind. She thought about her parents, the lessons they had taught her, and the strength they had instilled. She realized that these teachings were now guiding her in this new life. She felt a quiet pride in her ability to endure and adapt, to notice subtle gestures of kindness, and to navigate a world that was unfamiliar. She understood that strength was not the absence of fear, but the ability to move forward despite it. She made a promise to herself to carry this perspective into her daily life, seeking out moments of understanding and compassion wherever they could be found. The hours passed slowly, filled with quiet conversation and careful observation. She learned more about the household, the routines, and the expectations. She discovered small ways to contribute meaningfully and to show respect while maintaining her sense of self. She noticed that her husband responded positively to her attentiveness and patience, reinforcing her growing confidence. She realized that life, even when difficult, could offer small victories and moments of joy. The night became a lesson in observation, patience, and understanding, teaching her that trust could be built. Gradually, through careful attention and measured responses, she reflected on the challenges she had faced so far. The journey from her village to this home and the fears she had carried. She saw that she had already taken steps toward adaptation, and that each day offered opportunities to learn and grow. She felt a quiet determination to continue this path, embracing the small victories and moments of connection that made life bearable. She understood that while her life had been chosen for her, she could shape her experience through careful action, observation, and the cultivation of trust. The night continued with moments of quiet reflection and shared understanding. She and her husband exchanged thoughts on the day, the routines, and the small successes they had witnessed. She noticed his patience and thoughtfulness, realizing that his actions were not dictated by fear or authority, but by a desire for mutual respect. She felt a sense of relief and cautious optimism, understanding that even in a life she had not chosen, she could find moments of kindness and understanding. She began to see that fear could be softened by patience, observation, and the recognition of subtle gestures of care. As the hours moved forward, she felt a growing sense of ease. The initial tension of the night had begun to dissipate, replaced by a quiet awareness of her surroundings and the people within them. She noticed the ways in which kindness could manifest through patience, careful guidance, and thoughtful attention. She felt a sense of gratitude for these moments, understanding that they could form the foundation for a more positive experience in her new life. She resolved to continue observing, learning, and responding with care, knowing that these actions could help shape her daily reality. The night deepened further, and she found moments of quiet solitude to reflect on her journey. She thought about her parents, her village, and the lessons she had learned. She felt a growing sense of strength and resilience, recognizing that she had already navigated significant challenges. She understood that the life ahead would continue to hold difficulties, but that she could approach them with patience, attentiveness, and careful observation. She felt a quiet hope, realizing that her experience could be shaped by her actions and the relationships she nurtured. She spoke softly with her husband about her thoughts, fears, and hopes. He listened with careful attention, acknowledging her feelings without judgment. She noticed that his presence was calming, and that his patience allowed her to feel seen and understood. She realized that the fears she had carried were not absolute, and that understanding and trust could be cultivated through small, consistent gestures. The night became a time for connection, learning, and cautious optimism. A space where fear could be softened and replaced with hope. The remaining hours of the night passed with quiet reflection, observation, and gentle conversation. She felt a growing sense of confidence in her ability to navigate her new life. Understanding that each day offered opportunities for learning and adaptation, she noticed the subtle ways in which her husband and the household supported her, and she felt gratitude for these moments. She resolved to continue observing, learning, and responding with care, recognizing that trust and understanding could be cultivated gradually by the end of the night. She felt a sense of accomplishment and cautious optimism. She had faced the evening with composure, navigated the uncertainties of the wedding night, and discovered moments of kindness and understanding. She realized that fear could be softened through patience, observation, and careful attention, and that her life, while challenging, could hold moments of hope and connection. She closed her eyes, feeling a quiet determination to continue navigating her new life with resilience, attentiveness, and a growing sense of trust and optimism. The days after the wedding night passed slowly but steadily. She woke each morning with a mixture of anticipation and careful determination. She focused on learning the routines of the household, paying attention to small details and trying to remember the preferences and habits of those around her. Each task, whether cooking, cleaning, or assisting with chores, became an opportunity to gain confidence and to understand the rhythms of this new life. She approached her responsibilities with patience and care, mindful that each action contributed to a sense of stability and trust within the household. Her fear, which had once been sharp and overwhelming, now felt manageable and softened by experience and observation. Began to notice the small gestures of kindness that had seemed rare before. A warm word, a quiet smile, a gentle correction rather than harsh scolding. These moments reassured her that she could navigate this world with patience and attentiveness. She found herself learning to anticipate the needs of others and to offer support in subtle ways. She realized that her presence could have a positive effect on the household when she acted thoughtfully. Each small success reinforced her growing confidence and helped her to feel a sense of agency. Despite the life she had not chosen, she learned to take pride in the small victories and to appreciate moments of calm and understanding her. Husband continued to show patience and respect in his interactions. He observed her efforts quietly, acknowledging them with a nod or a word of encouragement. She began to feel a growing trust in his presence, understanding that he was not a figure of fear, but a person with his own careful consideration. Their conversations were short but meaningful, and she felt that he listened with attention and thoughtfulness. This created a foundation of trust that allowed her to feel more comfortable in her surroundings. She began to imagine that perhaps life could be built gradually, day by day, through understanding and patience. She started to feel that the house could become a place where she could exist with dignity in even small moments of contentment to inner moments alone. She reflected on her family and the village she had left behind. She thought of the lessons learned from her parents, the laughter of her siblings, and the small comforts of her childhood. These memories gave her strength and reminded her of the resilience she had already cultivated. She realized that the qualities that had carried her through difficult times before could guide her now. She promised herself to hold on to her inner strength while learning to navigate the challenges of this new life. She began to see that courage was not the absence of fear, but the ability to continue forward despite it. As she became more familiar with her environment, she started to notice patterns and predict routines. She learned when to speak and when to remain silent, when to act and when to observe. She understood that patience and attentiveness were powerful tools in this household. She also began to understand that relationships could be nurtured through consistent small gestures of respect and kindness. She found subtle ways to connect with those around her, offering help or sharing a quiet smile. These small actions built trust and allowed her to feel a gradual sense of belonging. She realized that she could shape her daily experience through careful observation and deliberate response. Weeks turned into months, and she began to feel more at ease. She could perform her duties with confidence and began to anticipate what was needed without instruction. She discovered a rhythm in her day, moving from task to task with a quiet sense of accomplishment. Her interactions with her husband became easier, marked by subtle understanding and mutual respect. She realized that fear had diminished not because the challenges disappeared, but because she had learned to face them with courage and patience. Each day became an opportunity to grow, to adapt, and to find small moments of peace within her responsibilities. She also began to observe the reactions of other members of the household. Some watched her quietly, others offered guidance, and she learned to respond with attentiveness and respect. These interactions taught her about human nature, about patience, and about the power of subtle kindness. She began to feel that even in a life that had started with fear and uncertainty, she could cultivate relationships and find support. Her confidence grew, not from bold actions, but from steady observation, consistent effort, and careful attention to the needs and gestures of those around her during quiet evenings. She reflected on her journey from the village to this home. She thought of the hardships she had endured and the resilience she had developed. She realized that each challenge had taught her a new skill, a new understanding, and a new layer of strength. She felt gratitude for the lessons learned and for the small moments of kindness that had made her adjustment possible. She began to imagine a future in which she could navigate her life with more independence, trust, and understanding. She understood that while her life had been chosen for her, her actions and observations could shape her experience and create small moments of joy her. Husband began to share more of his thoughts, asking for her opinions and listening attentively. She noticed the patience and respect in his approach, which encouraged her to speak more openly. These small conversations became a space for connection and understanding. She realized that mutual respect and careful attention could form the foundation of trust. She felt a growing sense of comfort and a belief that she could find a measure of happiness, even within the responsibilities of her new life. The relationship, built on patience and careful observation, allowed her to see that life could hold moments of kindness and understanding. She started to take small steps toward independence within the household. She learned new tasks, developed routines, and began to understand the dynamics of the home. She found ways to contribute meaningfully and to feel a sense of accomplishment. Each success reinforced her confidence and her ability to navigate challenges. She understood that progress was gradual and that patience and attentiveness were key. She began to see that her life, while different from her childhood dreams, could include small victories and moments of fulfillment as months passed. She felt a sense of calm and stability that had once seemed impossible. She realized that the fears of her first days had softened and that she had developed a quiet strength. She learned to observe carefully, act thoughtfully, and respond with patience. She discovered that trust and respect could be nurtured through consistent small actions, and that life could hold moments of connection and understanding. She felt gratitude for her resilience and the small acts of kindness that had shaped her experience. She reflected on her journey and felt a quiet sense of pride. She had faced fear, adapted to a new life, and discovered small moments of trust and understanding. She realized that strength was not measured by boldness, but by patience, observation, and consistent effort. She understood that life could be challenging, but that even in a difficult situation, moments of kindness and hope could exist. She resolved to continue navigating her life with care, attentiveness, and quiet courage, holding on to the lessons learned and the resilience she had developed. In the evenings, she would sit quietly, thinking about the village she had left, family she missed, and the new life she had begun to build. She felt a sense of balance, understanding that while her journey had begun with fear, she had found ways to adapt and to create a sense of agency within her circumstances. She recognized that her resilience, patience, and attentiveness had allowed her to navigate a difficult transition and to find moments of hope and understanding in her daily life. By the end of her first year in the new household, she felt a quiet sense of accomplishment. She had adapted, learned, and grown. She had built relationships based on trust and respect, navigated challenges with patience, and discovered small moments of joy. She understood that life could be hard, but that resilience, attentiveness, and careful observation could help her find a sense of stability and hope. She felt a sense of cautious optimism for the future, knowing that she had the strength to face whatever came next. Her journey, which began with fear and uncertainty, had revealed the power of patience, understanding, and quiet courage. She closed her eyes each night with a sense of peace, knowing that she could navigate her life with dignity, trust, and a growing sense of confidence and hope. The days continued to unfold with a quiet rhythm that she slowly began to understand. Each morning, she rose early, moving through the house with careful attention to the needs and routines she had learned. She noticed the subtle changes in her surroundings, the way the sunlight fell through the windows, quiet sounds of the household beginning to stir, and the soft gestures of those around her. She felt a growing sense of connection to the space, a small feeling of belonging that had been absent in the early days. She realized that familiarity could bring comfort even in a place that had once felt foreign and imposing. Her husband continued to treat her with patience and consideration. They exchanged words quietly, speaking of daily matters and small observations. She began to share more of herself, revealing her thoughts and feelings in small ways. He listened carefully, responding with thoughtfulness and respect. She noticed the consistency of his actions, the way he remained steady, even in the quietest moments. This gave her confidence and allowed her to trust in the stability of their interactions. She understood that trust was built gradually, and that patience and attentiveness could create a foundation for understanding and connection each day. It brought new challenges and opportunities for learning. She took care to observe the habits and preferences of those around her, noting how to navigate tasks efficiently and respectfully. She found ways to contribute meaningfully to the household, anticipating needs before being asked. Her efforts were noticed, and she felt a sense of quiet pride in her ability to adapt. She realized that even in a life that had been chosen for her, she could exert influence and shape her experience through careful action and consistent attention. This gave her a sense of agency and purpose that had been missing in the early days of her transition, in her moments of solitude. She reflected on her journey and the growth she had experienced. She remembered the fear that had accompanied her first days in this new home, the uncertainty that had seemed overwhelming. She recognized how far she had come, learning to navigate routines, build relationships, and find moments of comfort and understanding. She felt gratitude for the resilience she had developed and the lessons she had learned. These reflections gave her strength and encouraged her to continue approaching life with patience, attentiveness, and quiet determination. She began to notice the interactions of others more deeply, observing the subtle ways in which they communicated respect, care, and guidance. She learned to respond appropriately, offering assistance or listening attentively. She found that small gestures of kindness could have a profound effect, and that patience and observation were valuable tools in fostering trust and understanding. She began to feel more confident in her ability to navigate social dynamics within the household, recognizing that relationships could be nurtured through consistent attention and thoughtful action. Her connection with her husband continued to develop slowly but steadily. They shared moments of quiet conversation, exchanging thoughts and observations about the household and daily routines. She noticed his attentiveness, the way he remembered details she had mentioned, and the subtle ways he supported her efforts. She began to feel a sense of partnership emerging, a quiet understanding that even within a life shaped by circumstance, mutual respect and consideration could be cultivated. This understanding brought her comfort and a growing sense of optimism. The household itself became a source of learning and adaptation. She observed the routines, the expectations, and the ways in which people interacted. She learned to anticipate needs, to respond thoughtfully, and to contribute in ways that were appreciated. She discovered that patience and attentiveness could help her navigate challenges effectively, and that careful observation allowed her to understand the subtle dynamics of her new environment. These insights gave her confidence and a sense of competence, reinforcing her growing ability to thrive within the household in quiet moments. She reflected on the changes within herself. She recognized the strength she had developed, the patience she had cultivated, and the resilience that had allowed her to adapt. She felt gratitude for the small victories, the moments of connection, and the understanding she had gained. She began to see that life, while difficult at times, could hold opportunities for growth, trust, and even joy. She resolved to continue approaching each day with careful attention, patience, and a willingness to learn. She also thought about the family she had left behind, the lessons they had taught her, and the support they had provided. These memories gave her comfort and reinforced the values she carried within herself. She understood that her upbringing had prepared her for challenges, and that the resilience she had developed could guide her through difficult moments. She felt a sense of gratitude and pride, recognizing that her journey was shaped not only by circumstance, but also by her own strength and determination. As the days continued, she began to take on more responsibilities within the household. She learned new tasks, developed routines, and found ways to contribute meaningfully. She noticed the subtle responses of those around her, the ways in which her efforts were recognized and appreciated. She felt a growing sense of agency, understanding that her actions could influence her experience and create a more positive environment. This realization gave her confidence and a sense of empowerment. Her interactions with her husband continued to evolve. They shared observations, thoughts, and small details about daily life. She noticed his patience and attentiveness, and she felt encouraged to express herself more openly. These exchanges, though simple, fostered a sense of mutual understanding and trust. She began to see that even within a life shaped by circumstance, connection and respect could be nurtured through thoughtful actions and careful attention. She reflected on the passage of time and the growth she had experienced. She recognized the progress she had made in adapting to her new environment, building relationships, and cultivating a sense of agency. She felt pride in her ability to navigate challenges, learn new skills, and respond thoughtfully to the needs of others. She understood that resilience was not the absence of difficulty, but the capacity to face challenges with patience, attentiveness, and determination. In moments of quiet reflection, she considered the future. She realized that while her life had begun with fear and uncertainty, she had discovered ways to find stability, connection, and even moments of joy. She understood that her experience could be shaped by her actions, attentiveness, and the cultivation of trust. She felt a sense of cautious optimism, recognizing that life could hold opportunities for growth, understanding, and meaningful connection. She continued to observe the subtle dynamics of the household, learning to navigate social interactions, anticipate needs, and respond thoughtfully. She found satisfaction in small successes, the moments when her efforts were recognized, and the subtle ways in which trust and understanding were built. She realized that her life, while challenging, could be shaped by careful action, patience, and attentiveness. This understanding gave her a sense of purpose and confidence as months passed. She began to feel a sense of comfort and stability that had once seemed impossible. She recognized the growth she had experienced, the patience she had cultivated, and the resilience that allowed her to adapt. She felt gratitude for the moments of kindness she had witnessed, the support she had received, and the understanding she had developed. She understood that life could hold challenges, but that careful observation, thoughtful action, and patience could create a sense of stability and hope. She reflected on her journey from the village to this home, the fears she had faced, and the growth she had achieved. She realized that her resilience, attentiveness, and determination had allowed her to navigate a difficult transition and to find moments of understanding, connection, and even joy. She felt a sense of accomplishment, recognizing that each day offered opportunities for growth, learning, and meaningful interaction.